Welcome to this tutorial. Now in this tutorial, we will see how to use shared preferences for login logout system in Android mobile projects. So shared preferences can be used to store small collections of data in the form of key value pairs. Especially can be used to store small collection of data such as users login information in the form of key value pairs. So to do so, let's start from a new Android Studio project. Then select an empty activity and give the file name shared preference. Now our project is ready. So we have to go to the activity main.xml file and let's design to edit texts and one button to log in. To that we don't need this. Just delete and let's add plain text. The plain text is for username and let's add a password for entering a password. So let's keep the constraint for the username and we have to adjust the constraints bottom, right, the top and the left constraint. So I have to adjust the constraints for the password edit field also. Let's first say well, then I have to adjust just like this. Then I have to add one button for login. Just adjust the constraints for it. Then let's move to the text part and change some of the properties. Just change this to username and I have to change this to instead of text just give it hint. Just have to give the hint so just give the ID for the password and I have to give a hint for my text, my password edit text. Then let's give the ID for our button, login, and I have to change the text to login. Then let's see the design part. Here it is. So let's move to the main activity file and define some of the necessary declarations. First, I have to use a shared preference. And I have to declare an intent and I have to import the packages. Just press Alt Enter over it. Well, then I have to give the value for each of them. First, well, I have to give a shared preference over here. Get shared preference method to handle the shared preference, and I have to give the file name for a shared preference file. I cite user info, and I have to give the mode. The mode dot private. Yeah, since this is the file name for a shared preference file, and this is the mode, which is private, and this is used to make secured file in a shared preference. So I have to instantiate the intent also. I have to give the context. The main activity does this. This is a file that contains this activity, and user info.class is for the second screen that holds the logout information, and the main activity is the login screen. So this becomes error because we don't create an activity for user info.class. To do so, let's go to the resource, and in the layout folder we have to create an activity. Just go to the new and select a new activity. Sorry. Then activity, just say empty activity, and we have to create user info. So we have created the user info for a logout information. So as you look over here, the error has been removed. So if shared preferences dot contain username and shared preferences dot contain password, then we have to start the activity. If the password and the username is set, then a shared preference will start with a new activity intent. And then we have to add an event for our button login. Just change to login and have to give the view login, find the view by id r.id.login. So login.set on click listener, new view dot on click listener. You have to implement the methods. And here we have to create a shared preference file. First, we have to access the values of the edTexts username and password and store in these variables. So if username, which is equals to authentic, and password, which is equals to awesome, then it will add these contents to the user info shared preference file. If this is the case, then I have to implement this block of code in order to store the informations to a user info shared preference file. We have to use an instance of editor. For that, we have to instantiate we have to use this editor object and put our strings to shared preference file. So editor dot put string, and we have to give the values in the form of key value pairs. So we have put our username and password to a shared preference file, what we call user info. So this username and password can be stored on user info shared preference file. And finally, we have to commit the shared preference file. This is error because let's change it to main activity. So this, yeah, the error has been corrected. So if this information have been committed, then a start activity method is called to go to the second activity or to start our activity. After that, this message can be posted to your screen. Else, if username and password not matches, then it will toast a message on your screen. Post.make text. So if username and password is not correct, then it will toast this message invalid username and password. Let's change this context to main activity. So this it works. So if username and password is set, then it will navigate to the second activity. Your second activity, that means user info activity. So we have done our main activity. Let's move to the user info. Here is the logout page, and we have to set some of the informations over here. Let's add a text view over here to displaying some informations, and let's add a logout button, and let's adjust the constraints for them. I have to adjust the constraints for the logout button also. So over here, let's give the right, the left, the bottom, and the top constraints for the edit text. And I have to give the constraints for the button also. So let's move to the text part and change some of the informations. Let's change this to welcome ID and ID of the button to logout. And I have to change the text to logout. So I have adjusted the texts for and some of the informations for the text view and the button. And let's move to the user info file and have to initialize an object from a shared preference. I need intent also. Just import the packages. Text view welcome. So we have to give the value for each of them over here. And I have to give the layout for logout. So I have to create a shared preference. And I have to give the file name, what we call user info. This user info is the file name of the shared preference file that we have given previously. And I have to give the mode for it. Mode private. Secured accessing limit. So I have to assign the username for a logout. Whenever you log out, you assign the username for a welcome text. So assign the text just welcome to us shared preferences dot get string username null. So this assigns the shared preferences file from the shared preference file username to the welcome text view. When we save a shared preference file, we use put string, and when we get or access a shared preference file, we use get string. So username is assigned to the welcome text view. Well, so whenever you press a logout button, we have to attach an event to this. So we have to clear whenever someone presses a logout button, the login information have to be cleared out. To do so, we have to use the instance of the editor. Here, this shared preferences is instances we have instantiated from a shared preference, get shared preference method. So by using this, we have to clear the editor. and finally it has to be comment. So after doing this, we have to move back to the login page. To do that, we have to instantiate an intent. So the intent has been instantiated like this because this is the current file that we are working and we have to move the main activity .class file. So whenever someone presses a logout button, he has to be go to the login page. So we are on the way to test the program. As you look over here, we have written the main activity in this way. Now let's test the program. To do that, I have to attach my phone. So I have attached my phone and let's test program. Well, here is the output of the shared preferences for login and logout system. If we enter a username and password and if we press a login button, you have to go to the second activity. This username and password is the username and password that we integrate by hard coding in our program. Awesome teach username and awesome we have set previously in our program. So if we press a login button, then login success and it goes to the logout button. So when you press a logout button, it has to redirect to the main activity or to the first screen. When you press a logout, it will clear out the username and password, which is the shared preference files, and it will go back to the main activity. Definitely it works. So we have seen a shared preferences for the sake of a login and logout system. Thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe for more videos.